The Manchester United takeover. It's been quite the interesting saga because it's been months since the Glazer family, who own Manchester United, have announced that they would be open to strategic alternatives, including a full sale. However, once their valuation for the club was not met by two bidders, which is Sheikh Jassims as well as Jim Radcliffe, who owns Ineos, well, there seemed that there would be no prospect of a sale going forward because the Glazers were holding firm for what they felt was a fair valuation of the club. However, there have been new and improved bids made by both these parties, as well as the addition of a third interested party who's made a rather compelling case for why it is that he should own the club, aside from, of course, fronting up a boatload of cash for the club. What are these bids exactly? Who are they coming from? And what exactly do they entail? What are the pros and cons? That exactly is what we'll be going over in this particular video. Let's start with first off Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, who is of course a Qatari banker and does in fact in some ways or in many ways have some ties to the Qatari state. So he has claimed that of course whatever bid he puts in will be independent of the state. That though something that's yet to be verified or ratified. He's made a second and improved bid after his first bid was rejected, same as that of Jim Radcliffe's. And what's more is that he is bid to buy 100% of the club's shares, at least the ones that are privately available. Remember, United are listed on the stock markets. You can't quite buy off those ones unless you want to make the entity private. They're not going to be doing that anytime soon, but 100% of the shares that exist, he wants to buy off. But his purchase of the club would raise plenty of concerns, not least due to the fact that a Qatar-backed ownership already exists of Paris Saint-Germain. Would you want two major clubs owned by essentially the same state? It's problematic enough having it owned by one state, and then there would be a lot of issues over fair play or promoting fairness and equality in sports, aside from, of course, the rather obvious allegations that Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, would essentially be something used for sports washing purposes. That brings us to our next bidder, and that is Jim Radcliffe, who runs the petrochemicals company Ineos, one of Britain's richest men. He too has made a second improved bid. His first one had pretty much matched Sheikh Jassim's bid, but the key difference between his bid as well as that of Sheikh Jassim is the amount of shares that he's asked for. Jim Radcliffe wants to buy a 69% stake in the club. Why 69%? Because that would be buying out the entirety of the Glazer family. The Glazers own 69% of the shares, and Jim Radcliffe is bidding exclusively for that. The problem where it lies with his bid, aside from, of course, the fact that one of Britain's biggest clubs would be owned by someone who's essentially dodged taxes in the UK for years, is the fact that he does own other football clubs as well, including French club Nice, as well as a club in Switzerland. Truth be told, none of those clubs, despite having the backing of a corporate like Ineos, have actually managed to become a sustained success in their respective leagues. In fact, there have been more questions than answers when it comes to how poorly or badly the clubs have been run. So there are some question marks over whether or not Radcliffe would be a good, suitable long-term owner for Manchester United, who, despite having been poorly run in many ways for years, are finally starting to show some sort of cohesiveness on the field, as well as a fully planned out strategy thanks to the employment of manager Eric Ten Hag. Would Radcliffe be the right person to actually continue that forward? He has claimed in the past and said that he's a boyhood Manchester United fan, but does fandom entail being able to actually own and run a club? So far, history is against him, but he's in with as good a shot as any of the others to get the club. The third bid is probably the most interesting one, and it comes from Finnish businessman Thomas Zalakias. Now, his bid is a pretty recent one because up until recently, he wasn't publicly part of any sort of conversations with regards to buying the club. But if you're looking at, the way he wants to run things, that automatically makes him the most interesting candidate of the three, at least in my opinion. He's the newest bidder. He's spoken about matching or upping his bids in case he's unable to secure, but he only wants a 50% stake in the club. Why? Because he wants for the rest of the 50% of the shares to be available for fans to buy in, because he wants the club to be a fan-run club. Now, that is something that would, sound like music to the ears of many Manchester United fans who were, of course, tired of the fact that the Glazers would sometimes take these arbitrary decisions despite fan opposition to it. A 50% stake for fans, however, means that they would actually have a real say in how it is that things are run. So that does sound like a very interesting prospect. The only question is, how realistic does it seem to have that? Because whilst it sounds good on paper, might be a little difficult to implement, but Thomas Zalakis has said that he's serious about doing just that. Whether or not his bid is successful, though, remains to be seen, because there is every chance that neither of these three men end up getting the club. The Glazers might just decide to stay put and say, look, we might only sell a minority stake because we're not getting a big enough fee that we want from the club. However, as I said, all of that is up in the air, but as things stand, Manchester United could potentially be owned by one of these three men in the near future. At least that's what media reports are suggesting so far. However, if you ask me, the one I find the most interesting is the more recent one, because fan ownership for a top club in football may very well actually force other Premier League clubs to follow suit. But that's just how I feel. What do you guys think? You can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment. Also follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And last but not least, don't forget to download the SportsTak app. Also, if you're already on the channel, go ahead and check out some other videos that we've posted. For now though, from my side, goodbye.